Hello everyone, and welcome to Mindbox's new series on business model patterns. Now, at Mindbox, we often say that it's not about thinking outside the box, but about finding the right box in which to think. And a lot of that has to do with the extraordinary power that constraints have in unleashing creativity, even though that seems pretty counterintuitive. But there's another sense in which finding the right box in which to think is also true, and that is that the world is composed of patterns. And that's particularly true in business model innovation. There are a finite number of business models out there. So whether you're looking to tap into a new market, launch a new product or service, and decrease your operational expenses, or whether you just want to future-proof your organization against some future competitor, then you have to start with a mastery of the patterns. And that's what our new series is all about. What is up, everyone? My name is Josh David Miller, aka JDM, and I am the CEO of Mindbox. We're an innovation consultancy that collaborates with teams to facilitate breakthrough moments now, using what's often called design thinking. And this is the first video in our series on business model patterns. We're going to talk about the many business model patterns out there, or at least a large subset of them. We're going to talk about how you can evaluate which pattern might be right to apply to your organization, and we're going to talk about how you actually go about the process of applying a pattern to your organization. Then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and then tap that little bell so that you get notified when our next video comes out. Let's start with what a business model is. Now, I know that that probably seems like a really dumb place to start, but we're going to reap a lot of value by creating a really simple shared language that we can use to talk about business models. And then when we go to apply patterns on top of those models, it'll be very easy to see the relationships between everything. Just bear with me for a moment. Quite simply, a business model is everything we need to know about an organization, but stripped down to its bare essentials. A business model answers four key questions. For whom are we creating what value? How are we delivering that value? And why does that make money? Who, what, how, and why. Now, there are lots of business model tools out there that we can use that help us document our business model, that help us visualize our business model. There's the business model canvas, operating models, value networks, value chains. But we're going to focus here on a really simple model that we like to use a lot at Mindbox in the context of business model innovation. The magic triangle comes out of innovation research at the University of St. Gallen's, and it is by far the simplest and easiest way to see the relationships between those four key elements. We can see that those four key questions are overlaid onto a simple triangle where rightfully the customer is at the center. And this is a core principle of design thinking. The who question is really just for whom are we creating our value proposition. When we look at the top of the triangle, we have what. What is the value that we are creating? It's often called our value proposition. This is what we're trying to do in order to provide value to someone else. At the bottom right of the triangle, we have the how question. This is how are we taking that value that we've created inside of our company and actually getting it into the hands of our customer. And last, in the bottom left of that triangle, we have why does this make money? Why does this business model work? And that's, of course, a combination of the revenue model, how we're bringing money in, but also what it takes in order to actually create that value and deliver that value. It also includes all the reasons why that is going to work. Everything that is outside of the math equation. When we talk about business model patterns, what we're talking about are some subset of that triangle that we can encapsulate in a concept and then apply to different organizations or different verticals, different industries, and different circumstances in different ways. We're going to spend a lot of time in the coming videos on the various kinds of patterns, but just to whet your appetite, let's take a moment and talk about a few of them. One of the more common examples is the razors and blades business model. Now, this business model gets its name from the Gillette razor company, when in the early part of the 20th century, they created a new way of selling razor units. Instead of selling a flip unit with a blade, where the whole unit just got resharpened over time, they took the resharpening and essentially did that for you by having a reusable housing with a disposable blade. Well, they're charging upfront money for the unit, maybe even at a loss, and then making money over time through the selling of additional blades. And this business model wasn't new. It was in fact used by the Standard Oil Company a few decades before then, when they made lamps and then sold the oil to go along with the lamps. Upfront purchase and then ongoing purchases to support it. We saw this pattern again in the 1980s with the Hewlett-Packard Company's inkjet printers. You bought the printer up front, but you had to buy those really expensive ink cartridges all the time. When Apple created the iPod, what they did was create an MP3 player that you bought once, and then the iTunes Music Store where you'd buy purchases over time. Smartphones with app stores, Amazon's Kindle with ebooks. There are tons of ways that we see this exact same razors and blades model being applied. Another example is crowdfunding, where you invert the how and why questions by getting the customer to fund part of your value chain in advance. There's e-commerce, where instead of selling something in store, you sell it online. And then there are two that are total opposites of each other, called the ultimate luxury and target the poor. And these are where you take an offering and target the value in a way that you can segment the market to look at a really low price point, say Southwest Airlines or Ryanair, or to create a value proposition premised on it being a luxury good that you have to be special and privileged to afford. That probably gives you a good idea for now of what we're talking about when we talk about patterns. Now, before I sign off, I have two more things that I want to say. The first is that innovation is not the same thing as invention. Though those two things are often confused, it may surprise you to know that 90% of all innovation since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to today did not involve creating something that didn't exist before. What it did involve was taking a pattern that was found in one place and applying it in a completely new area. What's a pattern that works really well in one industry that if you were to apply it to your own, it would revolutionize it? Let me know down in the comments. There's a possibly apocryphal story about Henry Ford, where they say that he got the idea for the assembly line for cars by visiting a slaughterhouse, where the animal was moved from station to station, each station doing one thing well, but in a particular sequence. That's the power of patterns. It's not about thinking outside the box, because that only tells you what not to do. It's about finding the right box in which to think. And that's the note I'm going to leave you on.